Welcome to Subcon Podcast, Subconscious Sales Podcast. I'm Jason Hayes, your host, and I'm with Bill Baker today from Coast Commercial Credit. How you doing, Bill?
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. So give us a little of your history and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Alrighty. Well, my history is I've got 28 years of car wash experience. I've worked for a manufacturer, and I've also owned a car wash back in the day, a self-serve car wash, and I've been doing the financing aspect of it with Coast for 15 years. And I've actually known the general manager of Coast, Mike Ford, for 28 years. He did one of my first loans when I was in California with the manufacturer. So
Awesome.
got a broad range of experience in the car wash industry.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And where is Mike right now?
Mike is actually on Route 95 in Florida on his way to Sunny's headquarters to do a new investor seminar for people looking to get into the car wash business. And he does the finance part of the presentation.
Fantastic. So you guys know your stuff, put it mildly. You've been doing it a while.
Well, I tell people, once you get in the car wash business, you can never get out.
That's true. Yeah, very few people get out because it's very profitable and there's a lot of good things in the car wash business. So for people, and I don't have a bunch of questions, we're just going to chat and just want to get some experience. For people new to car washing, I do get a lot of calls and like, what does finance? They ask me about financing. And I typically tell people, well, sometimes you can get financing locally if you have those relationships. And sometimes, and you could correct anything I'm saying, because this is why you're here, because finance is a weak part for me regarding car washing. I typically say, you can get local if you have relationships. Sometimes the terms and rate may be a little bit better locally, but a lot of people don't have those relationships or can't get financed locally. Tell us a little bit for someone new to car washing, how do they go about it, and just start telling us and keep it as simple as possible for us.
As simple as possible. Well, when you're talking about new to car washing, it's one of two options. You're either going to build ground up or you're going to acquire an existing car wash.
Okay.
So
let's talk about let's talk first about buying an existing car wash.
Okay. Buying an existing car wash, a big determining factor is the car wash revenue for the last 3 years. And I'm not talking about a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. I'm talking about the owner's last 3 years of taxes.
Got it. Okay.
So basically what we do, or a lender does, is we put the purchaser with a new loan with the sales price that the owner's asking, and see if it justifies and can support the loan with the revenue that's in the car wash. But we understand that the new operator is going to do different things. Hopefully he's going to put in new equipment and change the business model to where it can be more profitable. But that's one of the determining factors is really how much money the car wash is generating at the current time.
And what percentage do you see where the books are pretty terrible on their taxes and they don't show much income at all?
Well, it just fairly often.
Yeah, that's what I've run into.
A lot of I call it the operators have an unrealistic expectation of what their car wash is really worth.
Yeah. Okay, so you're seeing that a lot.
My concern is, you're buying an existing wash. I always ask, why is it for sale? Just due to the difficulty in building a new car wash, getting the permits, the cost of equipment, the cost of construction is going through the moon. And you can get an existing car wash and you're already in the business and washing cars on day one. So my concern is kind of, it's apprehensive at first, because there's no, unbelievable deals out there that you just find, because a lot of times people will they'll give their car wash or sell it to their son-in-law or a relative. So we look very closely at each transaction on the buyer as well as the seller.
Got it. Okay, so when you run into a deal like that where someone is saying it's worth this much but their taxes show different, how do you get that deal done for the person that wants to buy the wash?
Well, we'll do we'll if we can get the numbers from the buyer if the seller gives them to them and they maybe need to sign a non-disclosure whatever
Okay.
we'll look at that and we'll give them an idea of what we feel the car wash is actually worth what at a certain percentage down can it support the loan, and we'll tell them so they can possibly go back to the owner and say, hey, look, I don't have 50% to put down on your car wash because your revenue doesn't support, your asking price. So
S- th-
that's one of the two options: either put more money down or the seller reduces his price.
See, I never thought of this. Already, I'm learning something. So you can be a negotiating tool for the buyer because you and your people looking at the deal will say, no, it's really probably worth this much.
Yeah, and we can also it's not like buying a house, but it could be. We can give you a buyer a pre-qualification letter. This is, hey, look, I'm approved with this lender, and you're more than willing to call him and talk to him, but your sales price doesn't support the numbers that are on your taxes. So we can not only look at the car wash and help you negotiate with the seller.
Well, you've already made this podcast worth it. And to me, you've already sold yourself enough because I never thought about how working with an experienced lender, you guys, just like insurance companies, banks, it needs to make sense for everyone. And if it doesn't make sense to the bank, then the buyer there should be red flags, right?
Exactly. And typically your local and regional lenders are terrified of car washes just
Got it.
because it's a single purpose entity, kind of like a bowling alley, a mortuary, a golf course. If it fails, they've got to market a failed car wash.
Got it. And you guys are experienced specifically in car washing, so you know what you're doing there and how to navigate all that.
Yes. I mean, we've got over 35 years of car wash lending experience, and every transaction is different. So, I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's really good information. I mean, that's extremely good information to know because if someone's working with you, they already have an extra tool on their tool belt to help negotiate the deal. And how often do you see? I mean, is it often that you see people start to come down on their price, or they stay unrealistic, or they start to break when they see the bank won't lend it to them?
well, the next negotiating tool is if the seller doesn't want to negotiate price, or it's not significant enough, the buyer now comes back and says, okay, well, you can be the bank and give me some kind of a seller finance. And invariably, the seller, he'll back down because he doesn't want to be tied up for possibly a 5-year term, being the bank basically, which when you're talking about a lot of self-serve car washes that have automatics, throughout the Midwest,
Okay.
um, where the dollar amount isn't too significant. There's a lot of land contracts out there to where the seller finances and the buyer puts down a small percentage, usually around 10%, and his payments will extend out for possibly 5 years on an amortized loan where you get 20 years from the seller. But usually after 5 years, it's like settlement day. You've got to find your own financing and get the old operator out of there. That's
Okay.
kind of like the broad strokes of a land contract. It's very, very risky, especially for the buyer,
Okay.
because a lot of the things, the negative aspects of that can happen to the seller, the actual, person who owns the land. You look them up on the county assessor, it doesn't say that you own a new car wash. It still says the old owner. And, he could die, get a divorce. There could be a job change. There's a number of different things that could happen that could affect your situation.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know. And to reiterate, and again, correct anything I'm saying. So you said it's like a second negotiating tool, stage two, to say, hey, owner, if you really think it's worth this much, then you're gonna put up the part of the financing, and that
Part or all of the financing.
yeah, and that'll get them to think twice about the price.
Yes.
Man, that's powerful. That's good stuff. I'm super excited about that. Okay, so what when someone's going in, we'll stay with existing right now, then we'll talk on new builds. But say someone sees a site, it's $300,000-$400,000, and it's going to need $500,000 worth of site work to make it a profitable. Let's go with in bay with self serves, and we'll get on the tunnels as well. how does that look to a buyer? Like, so they're going to need a total of, $900,000 or something worth of financing in a wash that's only worth 300. So how do you guys navigate that?
Well, we treat that as basically a projection loan,
Okay.
meaning we're going to put new equipment in, so we're going to change the business model. Just for instance, we put in a pettit, so now our throughput can be double the previous automatics throughput, and we may elongate the bay a little bit to where we can incorporate 2 cars into the process. Whatever, we're going to attack it as, this is a new business opportunity for the buyer.
Got it. So you guys, I did not know this. We need to talk more, Bill. I apologize. We haven't talked more. I've learned so much. So in other words, we kind of coach. I'm out here in Ohio. People don't know I do a lot of tours. I'm doing 2 this week. I kind of coach the in-bay express model where you're using a monthly plan, you're using a high performance machine, maybe a long bay, a bunch of stacking, and those high performance bays, the high performance model. We have single bays that could do 30, 40, 50,000, 60,000 cars a year out of single long bays. And like you said, we're changing the model a bit, monthlies and a high performance machine, maybe a longer bay. So that alone allows people to explore this. What did you call it? What kind of loan?
Projection.
Projection. Okay.
We treat it kind of like they're building from scratch because they're starting a new business entity. And granted, when we have a lower buy amount for the car wash like that, so that guy's numbers, they're not going to be significant for sure.
Yeah, that's a good
We're
point.
looking at normally we might start an SBA loan at 10% down with something like that that's going to have bad numbers, and we're adding equipment that's actually worth more than the land and the building. We're looking at probably something closer to 20% down.
Okay. Got it. Got it. And that's good to know. But with the advantage of that as a business owner is, again, it's already zoned. You're going to have some permitting, but it's already zoned and all that stuff can go much smoother than compared to building new. Has that been your experience as well?
Well, if we have self-serve bays there, you're going to continue to operate your self-serve bays through construction or while you're waiting to get your new automatic. So you're going to be with the old automatic for a period of time.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you're making money on day one. So that's the advantage of buying an existing wash. But you've got, it's like anything else. You have to work it because something happened to where it's only worth 350,000. So when you put a
Yeah.
new face on it and a new business and a new owner, you want to advertise that. And when you put in new equipment, you want to let your customers know what you're doing for them, so you can get those people that have gone to come back.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. What about what percentage? Well, let's go to tunnels. Out here, we'll talk about something very unique. Is the tunnel to in-bay conversion? We have some old tunnels that are full serve, and they're gonna get rid of the tunnel, take out all the equipment, and put in like you said, a pettit and make it a long bay with monthlies. Have you done many of those deals yet? Is that still
Oh, quite a few, quite a
okay?
few. And that's one of the things I recommend. We get a lot of calls where I might be the first person somebody calls going, how much does it cost to get in the car wash business? And I go, well, really, the equipment person is the person that you need to talk to. They're going to drive the boat here. But I will speak to them and kind of walk them through the process. But for something like that, it's what I recommend people do if you have the space to elongate a bay to where you can incorporate something that can wash more cars per hour and take advantage of speed and still keep the self-serves open.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a customer that took an old tunnel. It was close to a gas station. It's really close to where you live, actually. And they rehabbed it as a tunnel, even though the equipment person said, you probably shouldn't do this. I would just make it a long bay, a high performance pettit long bay. And they didn't. They ran it 1.5 years as a tunnel. They couldn't find labor. They weren't doing the numbers. And then they just took all that equipment brand new out and then put a pettit in it and made it a long bay. And they're super happy. And it's cheaper. That the tunnel to in-bay conversion is a very viable solution for a lot of people.
Yes.
So tell us what you're seeing in tunnels used. Are people rehabbing tunnels as a tunnel, or is that starting to slow down a bit right now as we speak, or what are you seeing there?
Well, within the last few months, we've seen a lot more rehabs to where
Okay.
people, and especially on the coast sides where we might see people, there's still some self or still full serves out there that people are turning into exteriors
Yeah.
where they need new equipment because the old equipment's not going to be able to handle the throughput. So we are
Okay.
seeing quite a bit of that.
Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. People turn to the express model. That's definitely the more efficient model. So let's talk about SBA loans. When is it a good time to do that? What's the pros and cons to that, and the other options out there?
Well, there's the pros and cons. The pros and cons of SBA loans for construction or acquisition are the down payments usually, I mean, it's always lower than a conventional loan. We're with an SBA 7A, we start at 10%. So you're looking at somewhere between 10 and 20% down.
Okay.
Um, the SBA 504, which is, predominantly more acquisition oriented. For a customer that has no car wash experience, it's 20% down. It's a special purpose property.
Okay.
The advantages of these two loans is they're designed, you can have no car wash experience.
Got it. Okay.
So when you go into your local bank, someone that you may have a relationship with, or someone that you've been doing business with for some time, they're going to start you usually, and we do conventional loans all the time, and they usually start at 30% down.
Got it. Okay. That's good to know. No experience, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. And what are some of the disadvantages of an SBA?
Well, people complain about the paperwork.
Okay. Got it.
And the SBA 504 has got a 10-year prepayment penalty.
Oh,
Whereas,
okay.
yes, whereas the 7A has got a 3-year prepayment penalty. It's a great loan to get you into the car wash business.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yes.
So what about new builds? What are you seeing there for like a couple in bays or a couple in bays of self serves or even tunnels? What are you seeing with the what kind of loan is that? What does that look like?
Well, we're not seeing as many automatic self-serve builds.
Okay.
Predominantly, we see a lot more exterior washes, exterior express exterior with the conveyor,
Okay.
but we are seeing some 2 and 3 lane uh, automatic longer tunnels. We're finishing up one in right now that he's got 3 pedits in,
Yep.
and he's in just an unbelievable location. So
I'm excited to see that. I'm only like in 2 hours from there, if that. And how close is he to opening? Do you know?
like 30 days.
Awesome. I'm going to go out there immediately and check that out. Now, that's a good example. That was an experienced operator, and he ran into a lot of zoning problems. Isn't that correct?
Not necessarily. He
Okay.
had some zoning problems, but predominantly his problem was is finding quotations to do the build, and it kept dragging on and dragging on and dragging on. And you need drawings to get your quotation from the contractor, and you need all that to go into the city to get permits. So it kept dragging on, and the cost of the project just kept ballooning and ballooning. But eventually, he got it done. So it
Okay.
was, yeah. So
I'm excited for that.
it was a combination of factors, zoning and also the getting construction costs, which is always it's always a hurdle that you have to jump.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know if you know about this, but it's worth asking. So I usually tell people at this exact point in time when we're shooting in the Midwest, people ask, like, hey, how much does it cost to build a nice long bay out of a piece of land or take a wash down, build a beautiful long bay with some vacs? And I tell people from a piece of grass to a beautiful long bay with everything out the doors, like 1 to 1.2 million, including building equipment, everything installed. I mentioned that to someone out in like Nebraska or Montana, and the building cost was almost twice as much. Do you know why or what's going on there?
I'm actually working with a gentleman in Montana, and it's, you're 2 million when you bring land in and equipment and building. So you're looking at 2 million for just a one laner.
Yeah, why is it that much more out in the West a little bit?
Well, no, that's what would be here in Ohio.
You're seeing that too right now.
Yeah, oh yeah. When you're talking about coastal areas like California, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Florida, the construction cost is actually more. So that project is going to be probably closer to 3 million. If you have viable land, the cost of the land is going to be more as well. So that brings us into the conundrum. Well, do we want to put the second bay in? And of course, I would say yes.
Got it. Because you're spending
So
so
if you're going to
much.
spend that kind of money and compete with friction units, tunnel car washes that have monthly programs, you have to be able to handle demand in that situation. So yeah,
Got it. Okay.
remains.
So the construction has ballooned at an outrageous rate the past like 3 or 4 years. Any idea why that is, or just finding labor?
Well, no, it's not necessarily labor per se. It's a lot of it has to do with the cost of materials, the
Okay.
cost of getting materials from foreign countries,
Okay.
chips. Everything's computerized now, and that's just driving the price up. You know, labor costs as well.
Okay. Got it. Man, that has risen quickly. My
Oh,
goodness.
it's dramatically risen.
All right. Well, that's good to know. That's very good to know. So do you guys like? What are some of the most common questions you get as a car wash finance guy?
Well, I mean, it depends what criteria we're looking at. Are we looking at someone who wants to replace equipment or somebody who wants to build or
Yeah, let's go across the board. Somebody wants to replace equipment. What do you see there?
I'm seeing a lot of activity.
Okay.
Operators that have kind of used duct tape and held on to it, you know, waiting to see what was going to happen with the country
Yeah.
are making a lot of moves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a lot of that.
Okay.
And what we're looking for in a finance aspect of that is usually we'll do what's called a finance agreement. And typically they run for car washes anywhere from 60 months to 84 months.
Okay.
And and what we're looking for from an existing operator is 2 years in business,
Okay.
and we look at personal credit. Anyone that owns more than 20% of their company is a guarantor,
Okay.
and we look at their bank balances. We want to see, you know, good strong balances and activity, and you know, just car wash. Do they have money going in and out, and
Okay.
is it a good risk to put in this equipment? Because typically the down payment is the first and last payment. So you're not putting up a great deal of money for this equipment, which only has one function. So from a lending standpoint, it's really glass half empty. It's very risky business
Okay.
because a car wash it's only got one function.
So if you have a car wash in Bay that's been washing 8,000 cars a year and they want to invest, 350, 400,000 into it to rebuild the site, what would that look like? Probably a significant amount down then, right?
Well, I mean, it just depends on, you know, what their credit is and how, you
Okay.
know, it's going to be
Got it.
different every time.
Got it.
And with something like that, you have to remember from a distributor standpoint, they have to remember that a lot of operators, when they've been operating for some time with a crappy machine and their replacement parts and labor to fix it, and the downtime where they're losing customers, the first thing they see is that big number, and they think in their mind that that's like out of pocket. Where your salesperson and myself, when we speak to them, is like, well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to eliminate all those repairs and the downtime, and now you're going to be able to get customers back, and more importantly, you're doing something better for them. We're going to be able to raise prices.
That's right. That's right. I've been hearing 50 to 100% they raise their prices once they put in a modern machine, and they don't have any
Yeah.
problem with it either.
No, and you know, when you give somebody something better and they know it's better, they're more than willing to pay for it.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So one of the most common questions that you get in that type of situation, what are people asking you?
Well, you know, how long can I go? And basically, you know, what are your rates? And you know, rates are different. Leasing and equipment finance rates. Simple interest starts in the low fives.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, that actual pricing really hasn't changed over the past few years because it's kind of tied to it's basically a rental rate.
Okay.
You don't own the equipment, and at the end of your term of 60 months, 84 months, you're allowed to buy the equipment for $1 usually.
Got it. So you guys technically own the equipment and you're leasing it out.
Well, yes, the company that provides the financing actually owns the equipment. So you're basically renting it. So the good news is, from a tax standpoint, there's no appreciation or amortization. 100% of the payment is tax deductible. You're renting the equipment. So if your payment's $5,000 a month, you've got a $60,000 write-off at the end of the year.
That's the first time that's made sense to me, and you just did it. I appreciate that. Now I get why people are doing this. Okay, that's wise. Okay, that works out pretty good. What are some of the questions for people? What's the most common questions you get for people that are building new, a double bay or triple bay or?
Well, they're constantly want to know what they're going to have to put down.
Okay, yeah, that's the biggest question then. Okay,
Yeah, so typically, we'll start at 10% down on an SBA 7A.
hmm
But you ask for one of the drawbacks, and this is it's very common. It's an SBA rule. It's gonna if there's a collateral shortfall, meaning you don't have enough collateral for this transaction, equipment doesn't have the same value as the land or building, so you're going to have to pledge something that has equity, primary residence, office building, another car wash. We've done several of those where a customer wants to build a second wash or acquire a second wash, and they'll pledge a lot of the equity in their first wash because they believe in the project.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So once again, to reemphasize, every transaction is different.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can totally see that. What are some tips you have for people like before they get financed or before they call, or what they should ask their finance person, or
Well, and it's like anything not necessarily tied to the car wash industry. You want to go into every financial transaction as strong as possible.
Okay.
So you want to make sure your credit is good. And we ask just really for anything less than 400,000, we only ask for a one-page application, 3 months of bank statements, and the distributor's quotation. Very, very minimal. And we get back to you within 24 hours in writing with rate and terms.
Wow, that's
So
impressive.
yeah, so I mean, it is as far as the down payment part of it, does this, starting at 10, if you don't have, you don't own a home, or the project doesn't look as strong, obviously there's going to be more down payment. Bankers look at risk versus reward.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. What are some tips that you have for looking for locations? Do people ask you that at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Constantly.
Yeah,
And
me too.
this is my advice. I've done what you do. I've sold equipment, and I always tell people is that if you're selling equipment, you need to get out there and make 10 calls a day.
hmm
Well, if you're looking to get in the car wash business, get off of LoopNet and get off the car wash brokers, um, and go out and find one for yourself. So get out a page of a map and draw a big circle from your home that goes anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, I would say max,
hmm
and drive those streets and try to find a car wash that maybe looks like it's not been given the love that it needs recently. And you may have an operator that's my age, Gramps wants to get out of the business,
Yeah.
and he finds an enterprising person, knocking on his door. Find that location yourself, and ask yourself, what would I do differently to where I can make this better?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's smart. So you're seeing a lot of people do this?
Not as often as I would like, but
Okay.
I mean, I have seen people do it because it's better to go out and find one that hasn't been through the ringer, where a car wash broker's first question he'll ask an operator is when he goes, what do you want to sell it for? Great. And they'll write it up right there. Whereas, I'm on the other side, and I see the first person they refer to me, and I go, this car wash can't support a loan of less than, you're gonna have to put 45% down.
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're gonna have to deal with that and go back and forth on that situation. So if you find one on your own, you're starting from scratch.
Yeah, there's a lot more car washes out there than people think, especially the self-serve in-bay game. And again, old tunnels. There's a lot of money to be made. That a lot of people kind of kick those down the road like they're not valuable, but a lot of quiet money can be made at a self-serve and in-bay or just an in-bay.
Yeah, and the real hook is I mean, with a very minimal amount of labor, you don't need anyone there. I mean, if you're going to do heavy volumes, possibly hire a Vietnam vet or someone else out there to help get through the line quicker. But it's it's really good passive income.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah, that's fantastic. Any trends you're seeing, good or bad, right now in the financing world regarding car washes, or any trends in car washing in general?
Well, we're seeing a bigger slowdown in the private equity.
Okay,
The express exterior growth there seems to have hit the apex,
I agree.
and possibly not as much investment, and which is great for operators, to see these guys go by the wayside and stop building on top of them.
Yeah, that was a pretty bad epidemic for probably 5 to 7 years now.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
been rough.
Whereas, and I tell people, especially when we're doing ground up projects, to be aware, to look, who's applied for permits, and could there be competition coming? But the private entrepreneur, your customers, my customers, have such a huge advantage over private equity, is because they care, and it's their money and they're vested. Whereas the private equity, 120-foot tunnel, it's got two employees. They get a paycheck from South Carolina, and they have a manager that stops by maybe for a half an hour in the morning, and they really don't have, they could care less about the car wash.
That's more gold you just shared right now. That is very true. And there are a few large operations that do a good job, but a lot of the large operations are struggling. Not all, again, not all, but a lot of them are, because they did gut it and they don't have no culture there. They don't have anybody that cares, and that starts to trickle down pretty quickly.
Yeah, and also, the quality of wash goes, because there are maintenance things that you need to do at any car wash with your spot free and possible water recovery, maintaining the brushes, or whatever you need to do to ensure that you're going to get a quality wash, where these don't do that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What any other tips or tricks for people looking to get in the car wash business or financing?
Well, I was going to say, I would say 9 out of 10 people we talk to don't have the means to get into the car wash business.
Okay.
As an example, you're going to build a car wash, and put down a great deal of money. Well, they're going to want to see you have money left over after the transaction, so you don't have a gun to your head to produce and wash cars. Even though typical, the 7A loan will give you working capital as
Okay.
part of the loan. So
Okay.
to help you, get started. You can hire employees to do advertising, social media, radio, TV, grand openings, so where you can really market your car wash.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That 7A sounds like a sweet spot if they qualify for it.
Well, it requires less underwriting. It's easier to get than the SBA 504, and it's a lot friendlier.
Gotcha. Okay. What and so they're not having the means is the biggest thing that you see most of the time. So people need to.
Well, and just due to the fact that the industry has changed so dramatically over the past 10 years, it's almost doubled to build the same car wash, just due to the cost of land rising, cost of construction, cost of equipment. So a lot of people just don't have any idea of how much this stuff costs, and hence why I would recommend that they go out and find a self-serve and make it their own.
Got it. So it's doubled in the past 10 years. That makes sense to me. I'm always thinking like 5, 7 years back, but you're right. In the past 10 years, I mean, it has gone up
Yeah.
significantly.
Cost of real estate and the cost of construction are the two biggest violators as far as raising prices.
My goodness. My goodness. That is pretty wild. So it's made the barrier of entry. What I tell people is the barrier of entry for car washing is very high. However, it can be very profitable. But you just have to keep in mind that it's going to take a lot of money up front
Oh,
to make it
absolutely.
happen.
But it's like anything else. If you work it, and you put your heart and soul into it, you can turn out a really clean car and make some really good money.
Yeah. So what are some mistakes you see people make? Some new owners,
In regards to
like an in bay with self serve.
mistakes they make, well, the biggest mistake I see is someone buying an existing wash without finding out really, what the equipment's age is, what its capabilities are. So like I said, we get quite a few calls with someone that bought a wash 2, 3 months ago, and they want to get a new automatic. And in a lot of cases, to put in $300,000 worth of equipment and automatic support equipment, it's easier to get the $5 million loan with an SBA than it is to finance that kind of money with no car wash experience with less than 2 years. So we see
Got
a lot
it.
of that, which is why I tell a lot of distributors to, when they're out talking to people, find the car washes for sale and go in and talk to that owner and tell them, going, hey, look, I can help the buyers get into this thing. And when you talk to the buyers, you want to tell them that they want to include the equipment in the original loan when they buy the car wash.
Okay, so this is real good information. So, and I've run into this a little bit as well, but again, you're describing it from a much different and even better perspective. So, tell people take their time and research it and try to get a loan all in before you buy it instead of buying it, and then you're kind of screwed because it's going to be much more difficult to get the financing to spend 300,000 to 500,000 rehabbing the site to make it nice.
Exactly, exactly. And when you do that, you're not only not financing that machine for 60 to 84 months, you're looking at financing that machine over possibly 25 years. So
Gotcha.
as far as a cash flow standpoint for a new business operator or someone that's adding an additional car wash, that's key.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And I've tried to tell people that too when they're looking at car washes, like talk to an installer first, have them look at it because your floor heat, people that are new to car washing don't even know what to check. And, new RO systems, softener systems, floor heat, all that stuff. If it's broken, it's going to take some major work. You're talking $100,000 just in maintenance just to bring it up to snuff, not even including their old machine that's probably popping out 5 cars an hour and doing a terrible job of it. So, I try to get installers involved early as well, so I tell them, have them look at the site, but before they do it. But that's good to hear we're on the same page for different reasons. Fantastic. So any other input in regards to financing? Anything else you want to chat about or warn people about or give them input or
Well, I
advice?
mean, we deal with both sides. We talk to distributors all over America,
Okay.
and we try to help them, and we try to give them some guidance on what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And from their standpoint is when they're looking at a car wash it's underproducing, and they're going to go in there, try to keep the dollar amount at a minimum, to where we don't add everything to where it makes it way more difficult.
Man, this is good. Bill, I don't know if you know how good this is, but this is good because I personally I talk to a lot of installers, distributors, service providers as well, and some are going for the moon on their prices. And you know what? On the package, we'll put it that way, on the package, they're going for the moon. And others are absolute minimum viable to get them running operational. A modern pay station that may do monthlies, and then a piece of equipment that's going to do a good job, but don't add all the stuff. And you're saying that's definitely a best play for the consumer because it's easier to get a loan done that way. And then everybody wins because the consumer will buy more washes, like the car wash owner, if they can get financed and they see this works. And then the installer is going to get more deals as well. But when they try to stack it all, then it's not going to get done. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I mean, if there's something that they may be able to use, is does the blower still work? I mean, spot free, can we, add a new membrane and maybe change the filters, change the resin in the water softener.
Yeah,
So we can
yeah.
get those things not necessarily brand new, but get them up to snuff. Check out the boiler. Is the boiler efficient, or possibly could we use on demand and mount it on the wall for a couple $1,000? Do we really need a new air compressor? So you get the cost of everything down, and then maybe we'll attack the new doors in 6 months or a year, once and you're getting your cash flow going, so they're going to be a lot more receptive to doing the little things later on.
Got it. So it's more about momentum and cash flow. Get them in, get them working as well as possible. Get some momentum, get some cash flow, get some numbers on the books, and then everything else starts to become a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that makes
That's
a
a
lot of
perfect
sense.
world.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. No, that's good stuff. That's really valuable too. And there are installers that watch this, and that's wise. That's just wise. A good way to do things. And I see installers who try to keep it as much entry level as they can, still for quality stuff, and they're selling a lot more machines. We'll put it that way. I never thought about the financing side though until right now.
Well, it's just it's human nature for an operator. They look and all of a sudden they see that they've got a $6,000 payment with all this new equipment, and they look at that as money out of their pocket. Oh, that's $72,000 I'm not going to have this year. When I, both know there's like a lot of trade-offs, especially, more volume, and possibly raising prices to where you can offset that and
Oh
getting
yeah.
customers back that were not happy. I tell people, have you gone in the equipment room when you're going to buy this car wash? Did you look inside the control panel for the automatic? A lot of them have a car count, and you'll
Yep.
be able to see how many washes they've had. You'll be
Yep.
able to look up on the county assessor's website, when did they buy the car wash? So then you'll be able to divide out, oh, wow, this guy's only washed so many cars. So you might get a little better idea of what you might be able to make. It means nothing to me what this guy's, possibly taking off the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested in his taxes.
Exactly. Exactly. And a fresh coat of paint and a new machine goes a long way. Especially if you
And
set it
a
up
new
right.
sign. And people ask me this question, Bill, what can I do to guarantee my success? And I would say, well, it's two parts, and it goes into the tunnel as well as the automatic. Is if you can get your monthly subscription or your monthly unlimited or limited equal to what your outlay with your mortgage or your possible lease, if you can get that, so you're covered on day one. And here's the real key, and I've been preaching this for 28 years, is know your customers. And I mean personally, a lot of people, especially in the self-serve, they've got a regular job. So, Monday through Friday is probably not possible, but get out there on Saturday, meet your customers face to face, especially got old people like me. If you can remember their names, you're gonna, give me 3 visits and I own you forever. So that's
Yeah.
a real key. And when you do that, you're keeping your car wash nice and there's no trash around. And it's a real key. It's you've got to be different. You're competing against people that are maybe lowering prices to get volume with the express exterior. So, and I always tell people there's always a market for touch free.
There is a market for touch free for multiple reasons. A, because it's touch free. B, because they don't have to worry about rails and bumping their wheels. And there's a lot of stress that comes with the tunnel for especially females. But basically, you're saying the fundamentals, which a lot of people overlook. It's amazing how many people overlook the fundamentals. And then monthlies as well. Monthlies are still the most powerful tools, even for in bays. I coach people often: lean the menu out, get them in and out as fast as possible. With a simpler menu, get them on monthlies. And you're right. When you have 200-300 monthlies, guess what? That pays for just about everything. And it keeps the site busy and more people use the site because it's busy. A lot of in-bay owners are missing out on monthlies still.
Well, the real hidden value, Jason, with the monthly is they don't have. I'll use my wife as the example of her fumbling through her purse looking for a credit card, and then she realizes she's too far from the pay station. She's got to open her door to stick that in there, and then she looks at the menu, and hopefully there's 3 choices instead of 4. I want to get that person who's got the monthly. I want them through that car wash faster, quicker. They're in the wash process, and they're not fumbling around with the pay station.
I hope people are listening closely. There's a lot you said there. So, and she is way more comfortable just scanning her phone or typing in a code than fumbling around. There's a convenience factor that many miss with the monthlies that people appreciate. Again, especially women appreciate the convenience factor, not having, they just go in, scan, beep with an RFID or whatever, where they don't have to mess around much. That matters to people. It really does matter to people. And you're right, it helps with speed, which people are still underestimating that as well. So,
Yeah, and that's the key. That's what the industry's gone to is it's a given they think they're going to get their car washed, but they want to get it done fast.
that's right. That's right. You're throwing out some gold here. I really appreciate it. This is really good stuff, Bill. And it's good for someone to see this has been doing this so long, because I find a lot of new owners and people new to car washing, they absorb what we're saying really well. Like, oh yeah, I'm in a hurry. I just want in and out. And I have more of a wrestling match with people who have been doing this 20, 30 years. They want, just like installers actually, they want to stack and get an option, and stack their menu so people are getting their money's worth. But they're sitting in the bay 9 minutes, and no
Too
one wants that.
confusing.
I agree.
Good, better, best.
Man, now we didn't plan this, folks. This is good, Bill. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and it's just like you want to study your pricing with your competitors, and you want to make sure that you're competitive, but you also want to make your top wash where 20 to 25% of your people may actually buy that in a nicer neighborhood. You want to make sure that that's priced as high as you can get it.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. That's good. You mentioned something earlier about lowering prices. Like I was in Detroit a little less than a year ago, and there's still some $3 car washes. By the way, they're doing nothing. Those car washes aren't doing anything at all because people want modern and fast. So you might have a $3 car wash down the street, and people are still paying $15, $20 for a car wash that's like less than an eighth mile away because they want a modern experience. They want vacuums that are by the road, again, safe, comfortable. Are you seeing some people race to the bottom still in certain areas of the country?
It's the old ad. I don't want a $3 customer, by the way.
Yeah.
But what happens when you go into that $3 car wash is basically it's run down and you see it on the walls. You may see algae and it's dingy, and you may hear more flapping out of the brushes because they haven't been adjusted. And those guys, they've got themselves into that mess because they're in that mess. So they're competing with somebody who's got newer equipment and newer technology, and probably somebody younger that's got newer ideas.
Yeah.
Sure. People are willing to pay for quality. Absolutely.
Excellent. This is good. Do you run into the same problem I do? Do you see people that have been doing this 20, 30 years are the hardest to coach? And that's no offense to the people who have been doing it 20, 20, 30. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I always call them, they're almost always younger than me, but I always call them Gramps. And I'm going, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yeah. Do you take credit cards in your self-serve base? No, I don't want to do that. Well, I go, it's 33% more revenue on day one, guaranteed.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to a guy that well, local to me. He's an installer in Ohio. And he was explaining, he bought a wash. He started putting I put a credit card reader on the first self-serve bay. He was working on the second self-serve bay, and someone came in and used the credit card. And it was only live for like 5 minutes, and someone was using a credit card. Yeah, you need the modern. And you know what? I'll speak for myself. I have a little packet of quarters in my car. But when I go to self-serve, which isn't often, but when I do, I'm trying to rummage through these quarters. I'm like, forget that. I'm just going to swipe my card. I don't have time. I don't want to go through my quarters and try to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, and you have to understand, who your customers are, and young people don't carry cash.
Nope.
So you want to cater to that market, and automatic tunnel or self-serve. You want to be able to capture that market.
Yeah. Are you seeing more cashless sites in general?
A lot more.
Okay.
The one that's going up in Pittsburgh is not taking cash.
Okay. Yeah, I know a few local to me, some tunnels local to me haven't taken cash for years, and they're doing fine.
Yeah. And it's basically it's going to be faster.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely, we're definitely seeing it.
I'm running into owners that A, don't want to worry about the liability, or B, the software is glitchy and the cash totals are wrong, and they just, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. Just make it all credit card. And they seem to be doing fine. All the ones I know, and they're in different environments. I've seen more wealthier environments do it, but I've seen also the opposite. The place where you think you want cash the most, there's theft issues and break-in issues. They don't want nothing to deal with that. So they're just making cashless on everything.
Yeah. And, I've definitely seen that.
Okay. Are you seeing that
over
more?
the years.
Have you seen many cashless self-serve sites yet? Or are you starting to?
No,
Okay.
no, not, I've never seen one.
Okay.
Not yet, but I mean, it's definitely coming.
For sure.
Yeah. And you got to remember that there's a big percentage of America that doesn't have a checking account, so they don't have credit cards. So you don't want to, if you're in that neighborhood, you don't want to lose that customer, the cash customer.
Okay, so you're saying specifically for self-serve and maybe in Bay and some of the different neighborhoods, you're going to want a lot of cash because you're right. They don't have bank accounts and think about that, just cash. Or some people get maybe a debit card from work, that they reload. That can happen too, but there's still a lot of cash out there. That's good to know. It's good to know. Okay. Bill, this has been really good. You have any other input or questions or comments or anything? Or
Oh gosh, I mean, I'll probably think of something in a half an
That's
hour.
exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna have a list of questions for me, but you're
Well,
doing good.
no, you know what? I do look at some questions, different things like that, but it's more, I'm better just having a conversation. And that's why I'm asking you actually for questions that you get, because you know this space better than me. And, the most common questions you get are more valuable than what I can find online, because you know what people are asking every day.
I'll
So,
give you a scenario that's fairly common that when we tackle a project and we don't want to say no, but we also we don't want to give someone who's got less than 2 years car wash experience for just an equipment type of arrangement, equipment finance agreement. We don't want to put them under the eight ball with what we call startup rates,
okay.
because that doesn't help anybody.
Okay.
But with every transaction being different, we're going, and we just did this a couple times the last couple weeks for petted customers, that the person who bought the car wash owned another business.
Okay.
And it may be in the automotive industry, like a dent removal, or somebody that's like a mobile detailer that has had a business for several years. And we cross collateralize
Okay.
transaction with the new car wash that they've owned for whatever less than 2 years, and cross collateralize it with the existing business that they pledge as a guarantor, and we get the transaction done,
Okay.
because that business has been in business for way longer than 2 years, and they have good bank balances and great credit, so they evaluate them going, hey, this is a good customer.
So the bank's looking at it. Okay, this is a business owner who obviously has some type of fundamentals because they've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years. So they've been keeping good books. They're a business person that knows their customers. So the risk is starting to look better for the bank.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So you mitigated that risk factor dramatically.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I get a lot of business owners. I tell you what, if people are, they were in financing or banking or something, and they want something more passive than their job, or again, they had a business that was completely unrelated. And I'm also getting business owners call me just for like consulting that have owned retail type businesses, and they're just, it's getting so difficult to find good employees and manage good employees where they want a more passive. So I get a lot of business owner calls. Are you starting to see more of those, or about the same, or?
In 28 years, it's never ending, the amount of people that want to get in the car wash business. They drive by a busy car wash and say, wow, I can do that. And they end up calling me first for some reason.
Yeah.
And they need to talk to the equipment person usually drives the boat, and I'm the second person they talk to. And then, once they, get up off the floor, when they find out how much it costs to get in the business, I mean,
Yeah. That's a good point. I hit them right up front. When people ask me what's it going to cost, well, rehab's going to cost about this much, new build's going to cost about this much. This is just the reality. And I also tell them, hey, certain equipment people might get you in and kind of lowball you, but the reality is it's going to cost this much. I try to tell them right up front, just so they know what they're getting into. And it's understandable. They don't know. The machine might cost $60,000. They don't know what it costs. So I totally get it. And we were talking right before, just for a few minutes right before we went live, and we were talking about how there's no advantage at all. Well, at least for those that are in this for the long term, to hammer someone in a deal that's not going to work for them. If we've realized this isn't a good idea, to like, hey, this isn't a good idea. I'm assuming the banks pretty much tell them that anyway, because again, it's their risk. But it sounds like you've been on the same page too, trying to coach people and guide people that, if it doesn't make sense, look elsewhere.
yeah, or to wait and go into the transaction stronger, build up your bank balances.
Yeah.
If you've got that ding on, I mean, you see the craziest dings on credit, or somebody, didn't take back 4 movies to the library and they had a charge off. Silly, but it's going to affect your credit.
Wow.
So you want to make sure you just go into the transaction as strong as possible.
Yeah. And that's good. And another thing you brought up a couple times here, like actually several times, and people often ask me, like, how much acreage do I need for a car wash? And I tell them, well, it depends how it's shaped. There's a lot of factors. Let's jump on a Zoom call. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I try to explain every single situation is different, both an existing car wash, a potential new build, and you're saying the same for financing. So this is good for people to know, like, you need to talk to an expert. You need to spend some time with someone who knows exactly what you're talking about, because anybody giving you blank answers, they don't know what they're talking about. because
Yeah.
every single site is different. Every single deal that you do is different. It varies so wildly.
Yeah. And it goes, there's two parts. I mean, you've got the equipment distributor that's it's trying to sell your equipment and or someone else's equipment, and they don't, and I've done this, I've sold equipment and they don't want to talk about the money. They're more willing to drive 4 hours to go meet a customer who's going to build this Taj Mahal, and they find out that they don't have any money. And it's something that it's a really important part of the process
Yeah.
is the financing. And, and from a salesperson standpoint, you need to find out if that person's got the means before you drive 4 hours
Yeah.
or 3 hours. And I always say, put me in your briefcase. I mean,
Yeah.
you can call me, you can sit down with the customer and put me on live if you like, and
Yeah.
I'll help you walk through it. I'll help them sell the equipment.
Yeah. Well, you've only been doing this, 30 years. So,
Yeah. Yeah. This is real gray hair here.
yeah. Well,
But wow.
this is great. And so people know, I don't endorse any single person, but I do know this, that I've personally sent a lot of people, your way, and we've had a lot of customers come back that has been very happy with the experience and that kind of thing. So, yeah. So anybody looking for questions to get answered or start the process, talk to Bill or Mike at Coast Commercial Credit. And any other last thoughts there, Bill?
No, I can't think of any. We've got a trade show coming up in 5 weeks in Las Vegas. We have a
Yes.
booth there.
Okay.
Pat's got a booth there. We look forward to seeing everybody coming out, stopping by. I'm totally tickled. We just went to Fort Worth for the Southwestern show and had just a number of customers coming up. Thank you so much for getting us financed. And then, because I asked them, I still contact customers to find out how they're doing. And, because I relay that to people that are calling in and use examples, especially
Yes.
geographically. If someone in Texas, I go, we just did one in Texas, and the guy changed his whole motif in his menu, and he's getting 25% of his customers are buying the top wash at $20, which he was at $12 when he had an older, ineffective machine. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so we might not be able to help you with the financing, but we're going to help people navigate, some pretty crazy waters in the car wash game.
Fantastic. Well, your experience is appreciated, and your time is appreciated. And yeah, we're gonna click off here. But I thank you for your time. And that's this is again Bill from Coast Commercial Credit, and we thank you for your time and for watching. Any questions, let us know. And Bill, I'll link your contact info to the video and the podcast. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.